in, everybody. Little Sunday morning edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. So I'll tell you what, we got a lot to talk about here on a busy Sunday morning. Everybody come on in. And man, oh man, do we have a lot to discuss. By the way, producer Matt was in Norman, Oklahoma yesterday watching his Auburn Tigers. So today's show going to be maybe a little bit less aesthetically pleasing, less video, less audio, but we got ourselves a jam-packed show. Hope everybody had a great Saturday. We're going to open, listen, two big stories, I think, from Saturday. Florida, it's a disaster. I already see the comments about Torres. Don't say anything positive about Florida. There is nothing positive to say. Listen, by the time some people listen to this, Billy Napier may be gone. I'm starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he doesn't actually get fired today. So we'll go ahead and discuss that. From there, we will talk a little bit about Clemson. It's over. It's a disaster. You now have players, former players, calling out Dabo, sweetie, so you know it's ugly there. We'll talk about Auburn, Oklahoma. Producer Matt was there. Did the refs cost Auburn a win? We're going to discuss that. Indiana, I see people in the chat. Oh, Indiana, what is their deal? We'll talk about that. And then finally, we will wrap Arkansas, just a meltdown for the ages. And listen, this is what we were talking about last week. The AD basically says, hey, we can't be competitive in football. Well, you put it out there into the ether. That's what ends up happening as Arkansas takes a brutal loss. Crazy busy day. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. YouTube, we're closing in on 61,000 subscribers. Cannot thank you all enough for your support. Cannot believe the growth of this show. Thank you for your support. Best part is we're just getting started. Make sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications, and also you can find us on Apple and Spotify as well. By the way, you want to do your boy Torres a favor. I do have in the chat linked my Fox Sports Radio national show. If you just want to go ahead and download that podcast, I would appreciate it as well. Really would help my Fox Sports Radio bosses, in addition to the AT Pod, kind of grow and all that good stuff. Finally, before we get started, should mention, it's that time of year. College football. You're going to games. Maybe you need to go to a show or a concert because your team stinks. You're a Gators fan. You need to get away from football on Saturdays. Well, good news. Our friends, our partners, the official ticketing partner of the Aaron Torres Pod, SeatGeek, has you covered. So SeatGeek, listen, it is America's #1 ticketing app. Favorite thing that I love about SeatGeek is really two things. One, they tell you whether the tickets you want to buy are good or not, right? Green means go, red means maybe don't go ahead and purchase, and they rate every ticket on a 1 through 10 scale. At the same time, beyond that, though, this is what I really love about SeatGeek. They have a special offer for listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod. That's right. They take care of us from start to finish. If you want to go to any show, any concert, maybe your football team doesn't stink, or maybe you're getting ready for basketball because your football team does stink, SeatGeek.com. If you use SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Literally had somebody text me this morning, said they're using the SeatGeek promo. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. We really do appreciate your support. It gets you $20 off your first purchase. With that said, a busy Saturday, busy Sunday morning in sports. There is no more time to waste. So let's go ahead, and how about we go ahead and get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, I think there's really two places we could start. Two programs that are very much at a crossroads, two coaches that are very much at a crossroads. But let's go ahead and start with the one that I do think is more topical just because of the entire state of the program as a whole. That is the Florida Gators, who traveled to Miami on Saturday night. This was supposed to be a great rivalry game, potential top 25 matchup. Instead, it was a dud coming in. It was largely a dud on the field. Final score, Miami 26, Florida 7. And let me just say this. It was everything that we hate about the Billy Napier era. It was everything that was wrong. He even said something after the game that absolutely drove me bananas. So let's go. And by the way, should drive every Florida fan bananas. I think the problem is most Florida fans have just given up on this season. But let's go ahead and dive into this game. So this game, kind of interesting. Florida really only about a 7.5-point favorite, or 7.5-point underdog. And I think it speaks to the fact that we got a comment in the chat like, Torres, don't give Florida any credit for the talent on their roster. Listen, I'm going to do something that's crazy. I'm going to give Florida a half a second of praise before I tear down Billy Napier and that debacle that is his offense. The praise is this. The defense actually showed up ready to play. The defense did its job. The defense was excellent for a fourth straight week to open the season. And really, you go back, it's about 7, 8, 9 weeks now, dating back to last year. The defense had an interception of Carson Beck. The defense kept that Florida team in the game. And the defense, frankly, I never found the right time to tweet it, but that defense deserved better than what the Florida offense gave them, because as good as the defense is, as hard as the defense tried to keep Florida in that game, it was the abomination that is Billy Napier's offense that just absolutely cost him. Okay, so first of all, the most jarring thing, and by the way, I should mention, because people will watch this on replay, we're recording at 11. It's 11:11 right now. Go ahead and make a wish. Florida fans, I think I know what your wish is. It's 11:11 Eastern time right now. As I record, Billy Napier is still the Florida head coach, okay? That could change pretty much any moment at any time, but as of right now, he is the head coach. And what is especially frustrating is that the defense gave them a chance to win that game. And instead, it was Billy Napier's offense that just crapped the bed for the millionth straight time and the millionth time in the Billy Napier era. And so let's go ahead and discuss it all, because to me, that was really what stood out, is that the defense is keeping you in the game, and the offense, it's not just that the offense was bad. It was that the offense, it looked like they showed up sleepwalking. Like I tweeted this out at some point in the first half, but Miami's defense, they're flying around the field. It feels like it's, the 80s and the 90s at the U with how hard they're playing and how hard they're hitting. Florida's offense is lollygagging like it's a padless practice in March, 2 days before the spring game. Like, what are we even doing? So the effort was not there. The want to was not there. And you know what I think the especially frustrating part, if you're a Florida fan, is that the results clearly were not there either, okay? So here's the thing. Billy Napier at some point is going to get fired. It's beyond a question at this point. But the number one issue, and I think I'll give Florida fans half a second of credit here, because I think Florida fans have wanted to make this work, have wanted to believe it was going to work. But the number one gripe dating back to year one and certainly year two is that Billy Napier needed to hire an offensive coordinator. Take the play calling off your plate and be a general manager, CEO type head coach, right? That has been the gripe from the beginning. You're not Lincoln Riley. You haven't produced a million Heisman Trophy winners. You have whatever you want to say about Lincoln Riley. He's produced Heisman Trophy winners. He's produced number one overall picks. I believe the stat is Lincoln Riley will have 5 guys that have played for him that are starting on an NFL game here on Sunday. That's not Billy Napier. So hand over the play calling duty, because it's an abomination. And Saturday was absolute rock bottom. Really, this entire season has been rock bottom. But think about these stats. I want to play these stats for you. This is where I wish producer Matt was here. He's traveling. These stats are insane. Okay, so first of all, third straight game with a single offensive touchdown. That is insane. Third straight game, single offensive touchdown. They had 16 points against South Florida. They lose. 7 points against LSU, they clearly lose. And then 7 points on Saturday against the University of Miami, that is bad. Yet what is somehow even worse is this. What is somehow even worse about the Florida Gators offense and the Florida Gators situation is just looking at the actual stats from the games. And I know sometimes people get mad about box score watching and whatever, but if you just look at the box score, you see just how bad it was. You want stats? I got stats for you. What was the old David Fizdale saying? Take that for data. Here's your data. Florida, third straight game, they had a single offensive touchdown. They finished, this is unbelievable, 141 yards of total offense. 141 yards of total offense. I know it's a rivalry game. I know you're on the road. That is inexcusable and embarrassing. It gets worse, though. 61 yards passing. By the way, the craziest thing to me, I've seen DJ Lagway hit deep balls. Go back to the Kentucky game last year. Go back to whatever FCS. He's chucking the ball 60 yards downfield. He had 61 yards passing, 12 of 23, 2.7 yards per completion. And oh, how about this? A big old donut, a big old 0, a big old 0 for 13 in third down conversions. I mean, that is next level embarrassing. We have Kentucky fans. Even Mark Stoops would be embarrassed by those numbers, okay? 141 yards, 61 yards passing, 2.7 yards per completion, 0 for 13 on third downs. That is the Billy Napier offense in year 4. And let me just say this. It was bad, yet somehow, even after the game, it was even more embarrassing because I missed this. But so keep in mind, Florida scored 7 points. So the difference in the game was that there was a field goal early second quarter. The game was tied at 7. Okay. And this was the perfect metaphor for the Billy Napier era. 7-7 early second quarter. Miami lines up for a 53-yard field goal, I believe. They kicked the field goal. It ends up being good. Florida only had 10 guys on the field. So on top of everything else, the offense is a mess. You can't even get aligned right. And you know what Billy Napier had to say? You know what he had the nerve to say after the game when he was asked about that misalignment, asked about what went wrong? He said, quote, and this is from our buddy Graham Hall, who we referenced a few episodes ago. According to Graham Hall, Billy Napier on having 10 men on the field on a field goal block attempt. Yeah, I don't know the details of that right now. Yeah. Hey, Billy Napier, how about you learn the details of that right now? Because how can you just think about that? It was a game-changing play because by definition, you lose by scoring 7 points. So the field goal that put them up 10-7 was the deciding play of the game. But at the same time, you don't know what happened. You don't have the details on that. That is your job. Do you think Mario Cristobal would ever come to the podium and on a crucial play, a crucial coaching error say, I don't have the details? You think Kirby Smart would? You think Ryan Day would? Do you think Kurt Signetti, who can do no wrong right now, would? I don't think so. And it is a metaphor for this guy is just in so over his head. And let's take it a step further. It is a metaphor for it is just time for this thing to be over. Now, will it be? I don't know. Again, we're recording here Sunday morning. Maybe by the time you listen to this, he's gone. The only thing I can think of at this point, the only reason that Billy Napier will still be the head coach come Monday, unless they're planning on doing it Monday instead of Sunday, is that they are hitting the 4-game mark of the season. They've hit the 4-game mark. And if you fire Billy Napier now, there's a chance a bunch of these players use a red shirt because, again, there's the 4-game red shirt rule that allows players to take a red shirt with 4 games into the season and maintain a year of eligibility. So I guess that's the reason that maybe he survives. But this is such an abomination. This is so bad. It needs to end. And a couple of things. One, first of all, that right there, Saturday night was just a metaphor for this whole thing. And I give Florida fans credit. Like I said, I think that Florida fans wanted to make this work. I think they wanted to believe. I think they tried again and again and again to believe that this was going to be different. And it just never has been. And Saturday was the example. Embarrassing offense, embarrassing special teams, misalignment, coaching mistakes, and offense that literally could not pick up a first down. 0 for 13 on third down conversions. And it's a metaphor for how bad this thing has been. And then the misalignment is just a metaphor for the misalignment in that building because Billy Napier doesn't know what he's doing. And so does he end up getting fired here on Sunday? I don't know. Maybe 10 minutes after we get off air, Billy Napier ends up, getting the pink slip and we get an announcement and I'm back live an hour later. Maybe it happens during our live stream. But at the same time, what I would just say, it's just time, man. It's just time. Now, listen, for Florida fans, I think Florida fans are over it. I said this on my Fox Sports radio show. Billy Donovan won 2 national championships at Florida in basketball, and he couldn't turn Florida into a basketball school. Well, guess what? I'm pretty sure that Billy Napier has somehow turned Florida into a basketball school. That's how bad things are, okay? But beyond that, what I would just say, it just feels like there's such a cloud over this program. And again, I get you don't want players to redshirt. Who really cares at this point? Who cares if guys redshirt? The season is lost anyway. You're 1-3. You still have, and this is incredible, I believe, so what, you have 8 games left. I believe 6 of the 8 opponents are ranked. It's not going to get easier. It's not going to get simpler. There aren't wins on the schedule, and it just feels like everybody needs a break. It's clear that the players who fought for him to keep his job last year have given up. He's given up. He looks defeated. He's snapping at the media. It just looks like it's just time for everybody to move on. It would be best for everybody. I think the other thing too, Florida fans, I give you credit. You've defended this guy. You've tried to believe. There's such an apathy kicking in that I do think just firing him gives fans a reason to show up to the Swamp 2 weeks from now when they play Texas. Now, you don't fire him, all of a sudden fans are either going to not show up, which is most likely, or just show up to boo, which isn't good for anybody. Players have quit for him. He quit on himself. I said this after the USF game. I really believed, just looking at his body language, the players' body language, I think they all kind of knew it was over at that point. They fought just to get him off the hot seat last year, and for them to then be in the situation yet again where he was on the hot seat, I just think they knew at that point. They lose to LSU, at least it's competitive. This one, again, Miami's offense gave them a million chances to stay in that game. They just couldn't. And it's over for Florida. Maybe I should probably check Twitter while we're live here, but by the time you listen to this, I think there is a chance that Billy Napier has been fired. Although, again, it feels to me like there's a possibility that they keep him just because they don't want all their best players to take a red shirt. But again, who cares about your players taking a red shirt? I think maybe in some ways it'd be good because just get some whatever. I don't even want to start talking about the players. It's bad enough. Florida, you got to make the move. You just got to make the move. Your fan base needs it. I think Billy Napier needs it at this point. It's a total debacle. Speaking of debacles, let's go ahead and switch gears. And, I'll say this. It's bad. Producer Matt, you see this little frame over here? It says Florida. It has the Miami and Florida logos. Producer Matt didn't even make me a Clemson and Georgia Tech frame, because I don't think there was any scenario where he thought we were going to be talking about Clemson. But let's switch gears. Let's talk Dabo Swinney, because this thing is just an abomination. And I'll be real. Just like what I said about the Florida Gators a minute ago, I think it's over for Dabo Swinney. And I think I don't think it's going to happen. I think it would be best if he moved on after this season, found another job. He clearly wants to coach. But earlier this week, we saw him go back and forth with the media. It's getting ugly. By the way, his former players are now calling out the state of the program. It's an abomination. Let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, game itself. Listen, I don't really know what there is to say. It's kind of crazy. I'll be honest. So we didn't preview this game on Friday because I didn't see the point spread. If I had seen a point spread where Clemson was favored by 17 points, I would have said, yeah, we'll put that on the betting card because Clemson should not be favored by 17 points against anybody, okay? Yet at the same time, I still don't think we really expected what we saw on Saturday, because it's not even that Clemson lost to Syracuse. And this isn't a disrespect to Syracuse. Fran Brown is doing great things. It's that it wasn't ever really even competitive. Clemson fell down 24-7 in the first half. Now they cut the lead to 24-14. But what was crazy about this game was that basically the best thing that happened with this game, let me put it this way, is that it went to lightning delay at halftime, and none of us had to watch it again. It went over to ESPN2. There were other games that were put on, and everybody kind of just forgot about it, okay? So thankfully, the Lightning actually did us a favor because we didn't have to watch the end of it, but it was over pretty much midway through the second quarter. You could tell that all the issues that Clemson has had over the course of the first 5-6 games were not going to change. And I'll say this. I did happen to be flipping channels. I did happen to check in on this game when they came back to air. And this was kind of the shocking part of all shocking parts. They were interviewing Dabo on the sideline heading into the fourth quarter. And I think it was Dave Pash and not Dave Pash, Bob Wischusen, maybe? Is that guy's name? But it was him and Louis Riddick. And they picked up on this as well. Is that in the sideline interview, Dabo Swinney, they asked him, like, what do you want to see out of your team in the fourth quarter? And he was just basically like, I want to see some fight. Maybe one play can get us back into this thing. But the broadcasters even said, he sounds like an FCS coach that's just hoping for any sort of positive. This sounds like when Furman goes to Clemson, or when Furman goes to Alabama, or when Alabama A&M goes to whoever. This isn't supposed to be what Clemson is supposed to be, but that's who they are as they lose 34-21 in a game that isn't really even competitive, okay? And so a couple things. You know it's bad. This is how you know it's bad. It's not just that Clemson's 1-3. It is the fact that now you have former players calling out the state of the program. Okay, so I saw this, and again, for people just tuning in, producer Matt is off today. For people who are new to the show, we have a producer named Matt. He's an Auburn fan. He was at the Auburn-Oklahoma game. As you can imagine, getting out of Norman, Oklahoma on a Sunday probably isn't very easy. But I saw this. I want to share this. How about this? Xavier Thomas was a player who played at Clemson for 6 years, was part of the 2018 national championship team, multiple college football playoff appearances. ESPN puts out a tweet that says, Syracuse upsets Clemson in Death Valley. Xavier Thomas, currently with the Arizona Cardinals, tweets out, quote tweet, at this point, it's not even an upset anymore. Not even a question. Should we call it an upset? A statement. At this point, it's not even an upset anymore. This from a former player who has won a national championship. But he's right. He is justified in saying what he said. The foundation that he and his teammates built have eroded. And while I actually, in some cases, like at Florida, I just completely blame Billy Napier. I don't totally blame Dabo, although he's pretty much at fault. But it feels like it's over. First of all, we didn't even talk Clemson last week because there was just so much going on. But with Clemson, why it's over is because this had to be the year. I know we're supposed to never say never, and you never really know in sports and things can change. If Clemson can't get it right this year, guess what? It ain't ever going to happen, okay? And you know how I know that? It's because, listen, they had a great run. This is incredible. So they had, I believe, about 7 or 8 straight years of 0 or 1 losses. This is now their 5th straight year with 3+ losses. And very clearly, it is still very early in the season, right? So 3 losses, 1-3. And I do think what makes this season so different is that this was the season where it was all supposed to come together. Last year, in hindsight, we can acknowledge, kind of got lucky to get into the college football playoff. You needed, ironically, Syracuse to beat Miami on the last day of the regular season. You get into the ACC championship game. You win the ACC on a walk-off field goal and get the auto bid. But you got lucky to get into the college football playoff last year. But this was the year where it was all supposed to come together, right? This is the year that you were supposed to sit there and say, okay, this is the time that Clemson gets back to being Clemson. And if it doesn't happen this year, it might never happen, because this is what was at stake this year. You had a third-year starting quarterback in Cade Klubnik. You had a third-year starting quarterback in Cade Klubnik that's in his third year in the same offensive system under Garrett Riley. You have, by my count, minimum 3 NFL wide receivers, and I know Antonio Williams has been in and on the lineup, but who cares? You still have Bryant Wesco. You still have TJ Moore. Beyond that, your whole offensive line, this is an important part. It's all 4th, 5th, and 6th year guys. It's guys that have been in the program. You're selling all in. Our guys don't leave. They believe in what we're doing. Your whole O-line is that, and they're not very good. Also, the defense. Listen, I'm not an NFL mock draft guy. I don't do mock drafts, especially in September. Go look at any mock draft. 3-4 Clemson guys off that defense in the first round. This was supposed to be the team. And if it's not the team, when is it ever going to get better? You have a third-year starter in Cade Klubnik with a third-year offensive coordinator. And beyond that, you've already made all the changes that you can make. You started taking transfers. You changed your DC last year. You changed the OC a few years ago. And it's not only the same, it's somehow worse at 1-3. And so I said something on Twitter the other day. I said something on Saturday during the game, but I truly believe it. You know what this feels like to me? This feels like to me the end of John Calipari at Kentucky. And for John Calipari, to his credit, he got out of Kentucky. He found a good landing spot. It was great for him. It's been great for Kentucky. It was great for everybody. And I do think that is where we are at with Dabo Swinney and Clemson. This is his John Calipari at Kentucky moment. Because first of all, a couple things. One, he said this week, he doesn't want to stop coaching, right? He's 55. He thinks he's got a lot left in the tank. Okay, I get it. But at the same time, the results are clearly regressing. 5th straight year with at least 3 losses. Oh, by the way, it ain't get, I guess it's getting a little easier because the ACC stinks. But like, what are we even talking about? What is even realistic? And you're fighting with the media now. You're fighting with the fans and the administration through the media. You're basically threatening the administration to fire you. If you listen to the press conference, we didn't even talk about it the other day, but if you listen to the press conference, Dabo said, if y'all don't want me here, go ahead and get rid of me. Like, that sounds like a guy that's defeated and frustrated with the situation and frustrated with where he's at, but also frustrated with the pushback that he's getting. And he kind of is playing from the playbook of everything I did. Nobody cares about what you did in 2018 anymore. It's 2025. It was 7 years ago. Trevor Lawrence left in 2020. That was 5 years ago. It's not good. It's not going in the right direction, and it's going in the opposite direction. So why it reminds me of Coach Cal is because Coach Cal at the end, Coach Cal at the end, it's easy to forget, was not a disaster at Kentucky. His final season finished second in the SEC in basketball, okay? But at the same time, he lost in the NCAA tournament at Oakland, and it was clear 2 things. One, the standard that he had set, it wasn't not only being met, but it was not going to get met. 2, I think beyond that, I think it was pretty clear that it was never getting back to that level. And 3, it was just this weird thing where he had tried everything. He had changed assistant coaches. He had changed recruiting philosophies. He had changed recruiting philosophies back, and nothing had worked. And if you're Dabo, what else is there to change at this point? You went into the portal. You changed OCs. You changed DCs. And I just think a fresh start would be good for everyone. Now, I think a couple big questions. One, I don't think it's going to happen because I don't even know what job is going to open that's equivalent to what's going on at Clemson right now, right? Coach Cal had a landing spot at Arkansas where Arkansas isn't historically Kentucky, but it's a pretty good job that was coming off multiple deep tournament runs, etc. I don't even, obviously we know that Clemson is going to, Florida is going to open up at some point, but outside of Florida, like what job would even make sense for Dabo Swinney? I have no idea. But 2, I just think he's too stubborn. And 3, I'll say this, I don't even know what kind of coaching candidate he would be in 2025 if he's not willing to use the portal and he's going to be the same stubborn guy that he's always been. So I don't really know what else there is to add on Clemson, but this was supposed to be the year. This had to be the year where you figured things out. You do not. And now it just feels like it's over. It just feels like it's getting ugly. And I'll be transparent. Again, if I was Dabo, I'd try to figure out a way out. I'd try to figure out if there's an equivalent job because it just feels like everybody needs a fresh start. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, we'll talk about the big SEC game of the weekend, that game down in Norman, Oklahoma, where producer Matt was at. Oklahoma beats Auburn. The big question, though, did the refs steal a game from Auburn? We'll take a quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the big pig invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your big pig invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also Support the show. Good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So do want to keep the conversation going. By the way, the chat has already kind of brought up what has been discussed on my Twitter feed. I put out the Dabo Calipari reference on Saturday. My buddy John Neighbors, who covers Arkansas, says, "Oh, Arkansas is going to need a new head coach. Torres, I see what you're doing here." So I'm already seeing Dabo to Arkansas, Dabo to Oklahoma State, but it does feel like a lot of you feel the same way that I do, that maybe, just maybe, it is time for a fresh start for Dabo Swinney. Really quickly, you know where we don't need a fresh start? With our casino and hotel sponsors, Circa Casino and Circa Sportsbook. Love working with Circa Casino, love working with Circa Sportsbook. So first of all, you've been to Vegas, you already know, right? You've been to Vegas, best place to watch sports anywhere is Circa Sportsbook. Largest sportsbook in the world, those huge TVs outside. They have stadium swim, the pool with all the games, heated pools, open 365 days a year. But at the same time, if you cannot make it out to the West Coast, here's the good news. Circa has now opened a replica sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky at Mint Kentucky Downs. All the things you love about Circa Sportsbook, all the great things, all the great details, everything that you love about Circa in Vegas is now available Franklin, Kentucky. Mint Kentucky Downs, it's that Tennessee-Kentucky border, about 35, 40 minutes from Nashville. And listen, we all know that we live in a world where you got to pay all this money for NFL, YouTube TV and NFL Sunday Ticket and Paramount this and CBS Sports that and whatever. No, you don't. All you got to do is go to the Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. They are our partners, and we do appreciate their support. All right, let's keep it going with another SEC game. Again, for people just joining us, I keep saying it, but I think it's important to note. Producer Matt, our producer, is on the road. He was actually at the Auburn-Oklahoma game. He is traveling today, so he's not available. So, a couple of the visual elements aren't quite what they are, but let's go ahead and dive into this one because the final score in this game, 24-17, Oklahoma gets the win against Auburn. And I'll say this, great game, physical game. Not the best day for the refs. The SEC had to call them out on Saturday night, and I do wonder if there are going to be some suspensions for the refs coming. First of all, let me say this. Physical game, great game, every single thing that we love about the SEC on Saturdays, it was one of those games. I know Oklahoma's new to the SEC, but tough, physical, nasty. Felt like every possession was do or die, winner, whatever. It was one of the most I think it was maybe the most physical game I've seen all year. I think those are two of the top 5 defenses that I've seen all year. But Oklahoma gets the win 24-17. And unfortunately, in discussing this game, we have to have the honest discussion. One thing about this show, we're not we don't glaze people, we don't whatever. We talk about the real issues that you guys want to talk about and you guys want to discuss. So let's go ahead and get in because I think there is a question coming out of this game. And that question is pretty straightforward. Did the refs give Oklahoma a win? Because I think two things can be true. I think Oklahoma's really good. I actually think they'll probably end up being in the playoff. But I also think the other thing can be true as well. Refs certainly gave them a little bit of home cooking in Oklahoma. Okay, so by now you probably know all the details. But for those who don't, first of all, Oklahoma, early in the game, pass over the middle, kid catches it, fumble, recovery by Auburn, picked up, boom, 7 yard, take it down the field, 7-0 Auburn, or at least 6-0 Auburn, PAT pending. Refs go to the video monitor. Listen, I thought it was a bang play. They decided that he didn't have possession of the ball before he went down, and then you can't really fumble if you don't have possession. So Oklahoma retains possession. That's 7 points off the board for Auburn, okay? By the way, again, I want to apologize. Can't show video of this. A lot of you ask in the comment section, show video so we know what you're talking about. There are rights fees. ESPN would very happily either sue the crap out of me or take this video off of YouTube if I start using video from the game. So I can't use video from the game. But a couple things. One, there's the fumble that was returned for Auburn that's then overruled, not a fumble. Later in the game was the big one, okay? So this was a huge play. Oklahoma, what was it? I think it was about 3-3, I believe, at this point in the game. So Oklahoma, very interesting play, lines up for, whatever it would have been, I don't know, a third down, something like that. They're not really moving the ball because, again, Auburn's defense is sick. It was 2nd and 22, as a matter of fact. Okay. So they line up. All of a sudden, John Mateer drops back, deep touchdown pass. Isaiah Satania is wide open, like nobody's within 50 feet of him. Okay. And you're like, oh, okay, touchdown Oklahoma, whatever. They go to video, and within seconds, the referee in the booth, what do they call him? Our rules expert. I think it was not Gene Steratore, whatever. It was one of the rules experts. Whoever is the rules expert for ESPN goes, oh, that shouldn't have been a touchdown. So what ended up happening? Basically, before Oklahoma broke the huddle, their wide receiver, Isaiah Satania, ran to the sidelines as if he was going out of the play, like going off of the field, whatever. I think you probably know, but I'm just setting this up for the fan that maybe didn't see this live, okay? Ran off as if he was running off of the field. Kind of hangs out on the sideline, not really paying attention. Oklahoma breaks the huddle. Oklahoma throws the ball to him wide open, deep in the end zone, okay? And so I bring it up because, like I said, immediately, when the rules expert immediately without hesitation says, yeah, you're not allowed to do that, you know that somebody screwed up. Now, first of all, what made it worse was the referee's explanation didn't even make sense. It was like, oh, well, he stayed, because I think it was Holly Rowe or somebody, whoever's the sideline reporter, asked him about it. And they were like, oh, he stayed within the hash marks, or he stayed within whatever. And it's like, if you watch it, no, he didn't. He was 5 yards off of the sideline. And again, these rules experts, they don't want to they're all former refs. They don't want to make the refs look bad. So when they say immediately that shouldn't have been a touchdown, that was actually a point of emphasis all offseason, that's when it's bad. It got especially bad, by the way, after the game, because after the game, the SEC actually did release a statement basically acknowledging, yeah, the refs screwed up. Here is that statement. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you probably can't read it. Here is what I'll go ahead and read what it says. NCAA Football Rule 9-2 Article 2 is labeled Unfair Tactics, with paragraph B stating no simulated replacements or substitutions may be used to confuse opponents. No tactic associated with substitutes or the substitution process may be used to confuse opponents. This includes any hideout tactic with or without substitution. Verbatim, exactly what happened. It continues. The officiating crew did not properly interpret the action as a hideout tactic. If properly officiated, the second down should have resulted in a team unsportsmanlike conduct penalty of 15 yards assessed from the previous spot. Appropriate accountability will be applied without additional comment. Appropriate accountability will be applied without additional comment. You know what that means? That means somebody's getting suspended. Somebody was supposed to work a game tomorrow and or next Saturday, and they ain't working that game. So when the SEC has to release a statement, it's bad. And again, it was verbatim what they said on the broadcast, is that it was a quote unquote hideout tactic, that they ran to the sideline to try to make it look like deception, and that was basically written out of the rules. You cannot do that on the football field. And so it was bad. Oklahoma got 7 points. And then, oh, by the way, what you can also say is this. Late in the game, Auburn was driving. It was a halfback pass. So basically it was Jackson Arnold throws the ball to Eric Singleton. Eric Singleton then throws it up. Eric Singleton's a wide receiver. He throws it to another wide receiver. And literally the Oklahoma player, you can see the screenshots on the on Twitter, grabs the kid by the waist, pulls him down. It's not called. And so listen, we can have a lot of conversations about a lot of different things, but the bottom line is the refs cost Auburn. Did they cost Auburn the game? I don't know. Because at the end of the day, Auburn did actually have a 17-16 lead before Oklahoma scored a touchdown and then got a safety. But what we cannot deny is that if the refs didn't cost them the game, they certainly altered the game, because ultimately Auburn lost by 7, and there was minimum one touchdown that was on the board that even the SEC acknowledges should not have been on the board. And then beyond that, there was another very questionable touchdown that was taken off the board for Auburn. Not to mention, you should have had an automatic first down. You have to settle for a field goal. So I think two things can be true. If you're an Auburn fan, you absolutely should be frustrated. What I would also acknowledge is this, and I thought our Torres on Auburn account did a great job for those people who are new to the show, an Auburn fan that maybe has not listened much to this show. We do have a team-specific Twitter page, Torres on Auburn for all of your late-breaking Auburn news, Torres on Auburn, okay? And so I thought they brought up a good point on the Torres on Auburn page, and that was that, listen, as bad as it was, there was some self-inflicted stuff for the Auburn Tigers. First of all, they gave up 10 sacks to Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold certainly didn't have his best day in his return to Norman, Oklahoma, and had 13 penalties overall, okay? And so you have 13 penalties, you give up 10 sacks, gets kind of ugly. Same time, let me also say this. I do think if you're an Auburn fan, you have absolutely every right to be frustrated. I came away impressed by both teams, and I actually think Oklahoma, I don't know if they're the best team because in the SEC because Georgia's really good, but Oklahoma's in the short conversation. First of all, let me say this. I know the refs were sketchy. I have to acknowledge Oklahoma has the best defense that I've seen in college football. Now, that's not totally surprising. Venables is a defensive guy, and this is stuff we talked about all offseason. By the way, when we were at Circa Sportsbook in the summertime in Vegas, we did our over-under win total picks, and I had Oklahoma, I think it was 7.5 was the number that I got it at. And I'm like, look, the defense was elite last year. All you needed was a little bit of an uptick on offense, and you're going to be really, really, really good. And so they've gotten the uptick on offense, and by default, the defense gets better when they're not always on the field, when they're not always in short field situations. It always, you're going to be in better situations by default. But that defense, man, I will tell you, it's as good of a defense as I've seen in college football this year. Now, again, I understand that Jackson Arnold held on to the ball a little bit too long. I get all that, but just filthy. I mean, R. Mason Thomas was suspended for the first half of the game and still managed two of the most filthy. There was one sack. It looked like it was out of a video game. It looked like it was Lawrence Taylor in Tecmo Super Bowl. Okay, I mean, it was unbelievable. LT, old school stuff. You look across the board, Jaden Jackson with 2.5 sacks and 2.5 TFLs. R. Mason Thomas, as I said, 2 sacks and 2 TFLs. That defense is unbelievable. I think Oklahoma right now, listen, it's early. You don't want to put the cart before the horse in any of this, but I have seen that John Mateer is basically the Heisman favorite at Circa Sportsbook at this point, but they're 4-0. And you look at the schedule. I know that they go into a bye and then they play Kent State. And after that, it's 7 straight SEC games. 6 of those teams are ranked at this point. I'll be real. I think they're in great position to make the college football playoff. Now, you never want to say never. And you do look at the schedule, and it is not easy, right? You do have at Tennessee. You do have at Alabama. But LSU at home, that LSU offense hasn't figured things out yet, and Oklahoma's defense is insane. South Carolina's struggling. Missouri, I'm sorry, I don't think they're better than Oklahoma. And I'll say this, they play, Texas in 3 weeks? They're better than Texas right now. Not saying that by then, who knows? John Mateer is a better quarterback than Arch Manning. That defense is actually better at Oklahoma. So if you're Oklahoma, I think you got to feel really good about where you are. Conversely, if you're Auburn, let me also say this. I know it's an unpopular opinion. I think they're really good. And listen, again, does Jackson Arnold need to be better? Yes. Does he need to have better pocket presence? I'd say so. The counter to that is that, again, you were a bad referee's call away from basically being tied against Oklahoma on the road in this game. And when I look at Auburn, a couple things. One, that defense is as good as anybody, including Oklahoma in college football. If Oklahoma's 1, that's probably 1A in terms of the best defenses that I have seen in college football this year. You look at that team, you look at what they're capable of doing, and they're just absolutely phenomenal, okay? And I think beyond that, what we also have to acknowledge, Hugh Freeze knows what he's doing, right? And we all know what the narrative was this offseason, and everyone's joking about Hugh Freeze, and everybody's talking about he plays too much golf, and everybody's checking his golf scores and whatever. I'm sorry, dude. That dude knows how to build an SEC program. That dude knows how to build an SEC winner. That defense is as good as anybody in the SEC. Cam Coleman is, in my opinion, as good as any wide receiver in the country, not named Jeremiah Smith, and he's pretty darn close. Eric Singleton's a stud. And Jackson Arnold, while he wasn't great on Saturday, he's an improvement. Jeremiah Cobb is a great running back. The O-line, I think, will be better in every game. I think the only thing that sucks for Auburn is just the schedule is so tough, right? You have at Texas A&M this weekend. So shout out to the SEC, back-to-back road games to open SEC play. And then, oh, by the way, on top of that, you also have a bye, and then you get Georgia at home in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. So it doesn't get any easier for Oklahoma. You feel bad, but you got to give credit where it's due to Oklahoma. They win. But the counter to that is, man, oh, man, did the refs steal that game from Auburn? I think there's a little bit of a conversation that maybe they did. Really quickly, let's get to a couple other games, and then we'll go ahead and wrap here. Nebraska, Michigan at Nebraska. They were a slight favorite. Michigan gets the win in this one. Final score 30-27. If you watch the game, and I don't want to say it wasn't as close as the final score indicated, but Nebraska had that Hail Mary play, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And you look up, Michigan kind of dominated that game, and I got to give them credit, man. Like, I don't think a lot of people, I know Michigan was the favorite according to the Circus Sportsbook. I don't think a lot of people were giving Michigan the benefit of the doubt coming into that game, but they get the win, great win, and a couple thoughts. First of all, great win. My first thought is this. Justice Haynes is very much a Heisman Trophy candidate, okay? Justice Haynes right now on the season, 149 yards rushing in this game. That is now coming out of this game, his fourth straight 100-yard rushing game coming out of this game. I don't have the updated stats in front of me. I think he's at 537 yards rushing through 4 games. I mean, you extrapolate that out over a 12-game regular season. That comes out to a cool 1,500 yards plus rushing, closer to 1,600 yards. So this dude is a beast. Bryce Underwood, I thought, was composed and looked pretty good and all of that. And then beyond that, for Michigan, just a great win, because here's the bottom line. You don't have Sharon Moore, and I know Michigan fans will tell you maybe it's an upgrade without Sharon Moore, but you get the win to improve to 3-1. And I'll say this, and this is part of the Indiana conversation as well. I think there's kind of a second tier in the SEC, right? We have the Big Ten, excuse me. We have the top tier with Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State. I think that is the top tier. But you get to that second tier. All these teams are playing each other. Nebraska, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, USC. Well, guess what? Michigan and Nebraska played this weekend. Illinois and Indiana play this weekend. Illinois and USC play next weekend. USC and Michigan play in a couple weeks. And so I just bring it up because all this stuff is going to figure itself out. But if you're Michigan, you got to feel pretty good about being kind of not in the playoff necessarily this second. You got to feel pretty good big picture, though, because guess what? No Oregon, no Penn State on the schedule. You get Washington at home. You get Maryland later in the year, who's a little bit tough. But you do have to go to USC. Now, USC, that may end up being a de facto college football playoff game because there's not a lot of places on this schedule that look like obvious losses given how you're playing right now. By the way, you could say Ohio State the last game of the season. You've beaten Ohio State 4 straight years. So I think they'll probably be favored in every game outside of Ohio State. And if you go 10-2 in this Big Ten, you're going to the college football playoff, especially because I think that Oklahoma loss is going to keep getting better and better. For Nebraska, I don't really think there's anything to say other than the fact that, it's just crushing, right? What is it? 29 straight losses to road teams, 29 straight losses to ranked opponents, 29 straight losses. That is an insane stat. I say it all the time. I'm a child of the 90s. Nebraska, 3 national championships when I was coming up watching college football. Insane to me. 29 straight losses to ranked opponents. I believe in Matt Rule. I even believe in the Matt Rule year 3 stuff. Like, I don't think the season's over by any stretch. But, like, at some point, you kind of got to win a game that matters, right? You've been hanging your hat on Cincinnati from earlier in the season and Colorado last year, before Colorado figured things out. Like, at some point, you got to win one of these games that matters. Good news for them. Very manageable schedule into November 1st when they play USC at home. Nebraska, their next 4. Michigan State, at Maryland, who all of a sudden looks pretty good, at Minnesota, and then also on top of that, you have Nebraska before you get USC. You do play Penn State late in the year. Really quickly, let's go ahead and talk about another big game in the Big Ten. And let me ask you a quick question. I got a question for the chat. Chat. I think I'm the only person in the national media that picked Indiana to make the college football playoff again this season. Of course, they went last year. There's so much pushback. There's so much argument. There's so much debate. Do they deserve to be there? Blah, 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 this and that. Well, I bring it up because I looked at this roster in the offseason. I said, Fernando Mendoza is a step up from Curtis Rourke, or in theory on paper he is. We'll see if it ends up happening. But the wide receiver group is all back. They're better. The O-line is going to be better, and the defense is going to be better. And so do I get to take credit for picking Indiana to make the college football playoff when I also did have Clemson winning the national championship, and I think I had Florida in the playoff as well? I don't know, but what I do know is this. No team made a bigger statement on Saturday than Indiana, even if it was at home. They were a 5-point favorite. Final score 63-10. 63-10 for Indiana fans following. Make sure you are following our Torres on Indiana page. Torres on Indiana for all your late breaking coverage. Listen, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I will say a couple things. One, I had this conversation on our Fox Sports Radio show. By the way, our Fox Sports Radio link is linked up top there in the chat. If you want to go ahead and just download it, do your boy Torres a solid. That would actually be like a huge, huge, huge solid. Got to let those Fox Sports Radio bosses know that people love Torres. Same time, I did ask this on Fox Sports Radio. Is Curt Cignetti the best coach in college football? Now, listen, I know what everyone's going to say. Oh, it's year 2. And oh, blah, 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 blah. And oh, this and that. And I get it. I do. What I will also say is a couple things on Curt Cignetti. First of all, and I think this is important, he took over the worst job in the Big Ten. And even if you want to argue he took a bunch of players from James Madison. It's not like he came from Alabama and brought 15 players with him. He came from James freaking Madison. Those were instantly his best players. But Curt Cignetti right now, as a head coach at Indiana, took over the worst job. He is now 15-2 overall. 14 wins by double figures. He also only has 2 losses, as I just said, 15-2 overall. The 2 losses were to Notre Dame and Ohio State, who played for the national championship last year. Both were on the road. I think this guy might be the best coach of college football. Now, if you want to argue, and I know you're going to say, well, this was his first win over a ranked opponent. Like this, I got this from Alabama fans on Twitter when I tweeted it out. Guess what? Yes, he only has 1 win over a ranked opponent. Here's the counterpoint. He's what? 14-0 against unranked teams with 13 double-figure wins? He's kicking, excuse my language. Cover your ears if you got kids in the car. He's kicking ass and taking names with everybody else. And everyone's like, I have Alabama fans like, well, I mean, who has he beaten? I don't know. Kalen DeBoer has great wins. He also has terrible losses. And that was my thing even last year in the college football playoff conversation. People are like, well, who did Indiana beat? I'm like, I don't know who they beat. What I do know is every bad team on the schedule, they literally destroyed. Something that Alabama couldn't say last year, something that Ole Miss couldn't say last year, something that South Carolina couldn't say last year. And it's the same this year. Alabama fans are like, oh, who has he played? I don't know, but he didn't lose to an unranked team like your team did. Now, Florida State's good. Another conversation for another day. So I think he's in the conversation. You know, you got to probably give the edge to Kirby Smart, best coach in college football right now. You know, Heupel's up there. Dan Lanning's up there. But Curt Cignetti's right in the mix, man. And what I'll also say is this, and I mentioned this a minute ago, is that, you know, we are at a point, like I said a minute ago, where I think the playoff picture is starting to figure itself out in the Big Ten. And I do think there's a second tier of teams behind Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State. By the way, Penn State, Ohio State next weekend. But I only bring it up to very simply say that what has become interesting to me is that you look at Indiana's schedule. They play at Iowa this weekend. If they win in Iowa, I think they're making the college football playoff. I really do. Now, they have later in the year at Penn State, at Oregon. Either one of those is going to be a pretty tough game. Not going to lie. But if that team goes 10-2, and I know what people are going to say, well, where are the great wins? They'll have beaten Illinois. They'll have won at Iowa. And I just don't believe that a 10-2 Big Ten team is getting left out of the college football playoff. Now, maybe if there's a bunch of 10-2 teams between the SEC and the Big Ten, if USC finishes 10-2, certainly Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State all finish 12-0, 11-1, 10-2, whatever, that might be different. But the counterpoint is all these teams can't beat everybody. I mean, Illinois plays USC this weekend. Somebody's got to take a loss. Nebraska plays USC. Somebody's got to take a loss. Nebraska plays Ohio State. Illinois plays whatever. The point I'm trying to make is all these teams have to take losses at some point. And so if they go 10-2, if they beat Iowa this weekend, they're going to go 10-2 because, again, there's no track record of Indiana not destroying bad teams when Curt Cignetti's the head coach. And so we'll see what happens this week at Iowa. I haven't seen a circa point spread yet, but if we get it, I just don't see the scenario where Indiana is not in the college football playoff this year. So credit Indiana. Unbelievable win. And as I said, if you are not following our Torres on Indiana page, Torres on Indiana for all your late-breaking Indiana news. All right, so what I want to do, I want to take one more break. I want to come back. When we do, we got to talk about the debacle of the century, the Arkansas Razorbacks. I mean, meltdown for the ages against Memphis early on Saturday. And again, Clemson was in a rain delay. Everything else was kind of a blowout. So everybody watch this. Take a quick break, talk Arkansas's meltdown and the bigger picture that it means. Quick break. Be right back. What's up, everybody? It's AT, and I've told you before, when I'm on the road, when I'm podcasting, sometimes you end up looking like a slob. Look at me, mismatched socks, I'm wearing shorts. What am I doing? The folks at FioBox said, Torres, let's get you some fresh gear to look better when you're on camera. Well, what do you think? This is all part of the spring collection for FioBox. These jeans, perfect when I want to go to games, casual, serious, business casual, you name it. Got the quarter zip. And oh, by the way, we got this perfect zip. This is the perfect spring, summer zip that you can wear when you're out with friends. Maybe it gets a little chilly. Maybe it's a little chilly in the morning. Perfect for all occasions. So this is what I need you to do. If you like what you see, and you should, what I need you to do is visit FioBox.com. That's FioBox.com, FIOBOC. By the way, FioBox has a special promo code for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Use promo code Torres and get 20% off your purchase. Thank you again to FioBox. By the way, make sure that you're following them on social media at FioBox, FIOBOC. Thank you, FioBox. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Before we get to the debacle that was the Arkansas Razorbacks, you know what I got to do? I got to thank our friends. I got to thank our partners. I got to go ahead and thank you know who. I got to thank Collie Puffs. Okay, so Collie Puffs, listen, new age health food snack, right? You're on the couch all day Saturday, all day Sunday. You need a snack that is both healthy but delicious. My friends, you need Collie Puffs. Okay, family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge football fan. And the thing that I love about Joey, one, huge sports fan. We know that. Two, on top of that, he's no different than us. He was sitting on the couch one day. He said, you know what? I need a snack that's healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something I'm going to love. And he came up with Collie Puffs. New age alternative to the crap in your grocery aisle. You don't need Doritos. You don't need Fritos. You need Collie Puffs. Baked, not fried. Avocado oil, no grease. Healthy ingredients. But the best part is, it tastes freaking delicious. What actually is the best part, though, for real, is that you don't even need to take my word for it at this point. All you got to do is try them out for yourself with a special discount code. How about this? If you go to colliepuffs.com, that's colliepuffs.com. If you use promo code Torres, it gets you 15% off your purchase. Again, promo code Torres gets you 15% off your purchase, colliepuffs.com. Also available on Amazon. Obviously, can't get the discount there. Colliepuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you a 15% off of your purchase. With that said, let's go ahead and switch gears really quick. And let's go ahead and talk about a game. It was a tough watch. It wasn't a surprising result, though. It was the Arkansas-Memphis game. Okay, first of all, by the way, if you are a diehard Hogs fan, just hoping and praying, what you got to do is make sure you got to go ahead and follow our Torres on the Hogs page, Torres on the Hogs for all your late-breaking Arkansas news, because I think there's going to be quite a bit here over the next couple weeks, okay? But so Arkansas, we started this week with the conversation about Hunter Yurachek, right? Hunter Yurachek is the AD. Hunter Yurachek basically said at a press conference, and I'm paraphrasing, we don't have the video. Again, producer Matt is traveling today. Hunter Yurachek, the AD, basically said, like, look, bottom line is right now we cannot compete for a national championship in football. And I think there were two ways to look at it. I think if you're not an Arkansas fan, you would say, well, I mean, Arkansas, they haven't, when's the last time they were nationally relevant? So, of course, that's not a crazy thing to say. But I think others, like myself, and certainly Arkansas fans, I think we're mostly taken aback by those comments because, one, I truly believe that no SEC AD should be saying that anywhere. If American AD wants to say it, if a Sun Belt AD wants to say it, even if some of these lower tier ACC Big 12 schools want to say it, that's fine. Like if Boston College's AD came out and said, we're really not built to win a national championship, like I don't know that I would disagree with it. But at Arkansas, listen, let me just put it simply. Ole Miss was in the playoff conversation last year. South Carolina was in the playoff conversation last year. 2 years ago, if there was a 12-team playoff, Missouri would have been in the playoff. If Missouri can get into a college football playoff, if South Carolina and Ole Miss are in position to get into a college football playoff, Arkansas should at least have a team that in theory can be in the conversation every once in a while. And that's where I think a lot of the conversation with Arkansas has been misconstrued, is the notion that, like, I don't want to speak for Arkansas fans. I don't believe that Arkansas fans feel like they should be in the national championship picture every year. But every once in a while, can we mess around and win 9 or 10 games and be in the conversation? Is it too much to ask? If it's not too much to ask at Missouri or Ole Miss, I don't think it's too much to ask for Arkansas. Anyway, I bring it up because we got to talk about Saturday, okay? So Saturday, coming off of those comments to Hunter Yurachek, they're going to Memphis. Now, Memphis is a very good group of 5 team, but if you're arguing you can't compete with the top of the SEC, well, you should be able to compete with the top of the AAC, the American. They don't like to go by the AAC anymore, okay? Problem is, this was the most quintessential Arkansas game that you could ever imagine. I'm not going to beat around the bush and, well, in the third quarter, this happened, and in the second quarter, this happened. Let's get to the nuts and bolts. Let's get to the end, and let's get to the fact that Memphis, in the most crushing way possible for an Arkansas fan, beats Arkansas 32-31. And I know I'm all over the place with the Yurachek comments and with this, but it'll all come together at the end, I promise. Memphis beats Arkansas, final score 32-31. And in this game, it was everything that Arkansas fans are frustrated with, not only with the football team, but also with the administration as well, okay? So you go back to the game, as I mentioned, okay? First of all, you get off to a hot start because guess what? You have a great quarterback in Taylor Green, and you have a great play caller in Bobby Petrino. At one point, you're up. Let me just make sure that I have this correct. I have it written down. At one point, you're up 28-10 in this game, late second quarter. They cut it to 28-17. But even late in the fourth quarter, you're up 31-20. So it's a 2-possession game, and you have an unstoppable offense that Memphis hasn't been able to get in off the field all day. Okay. Well, we all know what happened from there. First, Memphis scores a touchdown, cuts it to 31-26. But even late in the game, you're up 31-20. They cut it to 31-26. Even late in the game, you still feel like you're in pretty good shape. There's about 4 minutes to go. Memphis gets the ball back, okay? Deep in their own territory. And all you had to do was watch the game to know that if all Arkansas has to do is just get them off the field without giving up a touchdown, and you're probably going to win the game, okay? At the very least, you're hoping that they either score really quickly so you get the ball back, or conversely, that you force them to use a few timeouts in the process. The one thing you can't do is kind of that middle ground, whatever. Here's the point. You're up 31-26, one stop, doesn't quite win the game, but it really puts you in pretty good shape. By the way, if you get a stop deep in their own territory, they punt it to you, you're in field goal range pretty quickly. Bottom line, what ends up happening? Third play. Remember, this is supposed to be an SEC defense, and I'm not saying it's Oklahoma or Texas or whatever, but can you make a tackle? You give up a 64-yard run for Memphis to take the lead 32-31 with about 4 minutes to go. And it was at that point that I tweeted this out, and I don't apologize for saying it, okay? Let me see if I have the right tweet here. This is what I said. I said, Arkansas's defense is one of the worst coached that I've seen. Missed tackles, out of position, bad angles, bad effort. It's the perfect storm of awful. That is how I described Arkansas's defense late in that game. Oh, don't worry, it gets worse. So Arkansas at this point is down 32-31. They get the ball back. Again, down one. Memphis doesn't get the 2-point conversion. You're like, can they get in field goal range? Can they get in position? Oh, I don't know. How about they just start gashing Memphis's defense? 5 yards per carry, 7 yards a carry, 8 yards a carry. And all of a sudden, you go down the length of the field. You're not only in field goal range, you're so close that Memphis now has to start taking timeouts, so they hope to get the ball back with any time left on the clock. Memphis is burning timeouts. You're at the Memphis 9. It's a chip shot field goal. What is that? I'm not great at math, but what is that? About a 26-yard field goal, 25-yard field goal. All you have to do is take knees. Instead, they hand the ball off to Mike Washington. I feel bad because that kid was unbelievable. They punched the ball out deep in Memphis territory, 25-yard field goal, chip shot field goal that would have won you the game. They recover, and it's bad. Yet here is the worst part. This is the worst part of all of it. It's unbelievable how bad it is. This is the worst part. This is the worst part. You punch the ball out. That Memphis punched the ball out in field goal range. They recover it. You still have all 3 timeouts. And this is the crazy part. If you get 3 stops, you're going to get the ball back. Not a ton of time, but with Taylor Green, maybe the most gifted offensive player, maybe in the country. I mean, I don't think that's hyperbole. Like the most naturally gifted. I'm not saying he's the best, but maybe the most naturally gifted. You can get back in field goal range. All you got to do is get 3 stops. 1 stop, call a timeout, stop the clock. 2 stops, call a timeout. The quarterback for Memphis's helmet falls off. What does that mean? He can't be in on 3rd down. They put in the backup quarterback basically to run the ball up the middle, punt the ball back, and pray you don't get in field goal range. What ends up happening? Arkansas's defense quits. Arkansas's defense gives up an 11-yard run to the backup quarterback who's just trying not to fumble the ball. He gets the 1st down, and the game is over. So again, don't give up the deep run. Then you give up the deep run, you get in field goal range and fumble it. Then even after you fumble it, you have 3 timeouts, you can get the ball back. The backup quarterback picks up 11 yards, and you lose the game. Listen, couple things. At this point, it's not even a debate. Like, Sam Pittman's just not the guy. He's never going to be the guy. It's okay. We can acknowledge it, whatever. And by the way, we are recording here at now 12:12. We were talking at 11:11 about Billy Napier getting fired. It's 12:12. So Arkansas fans, make your wish. 12:12 Eastern, 11:12 Pacific in the morning. But listen, we're recording at 12:12 Eastern, 9:12 Pacific, 11:12 Central Time. And I don't know what's going to happen today. I assume they're not going to fire Sam Pittman, not right before Notre Dame comes to town this weekend. But it's so obviously over. But to me, this is so much bigger than just Sam Pittman and firing a head coach. What it is a metaphor for the state of things and a metaphor for what Hunter Yurachek said last weekend. And what stands out to me, and I tweeted this, I didn't screenshot it. Again, producer Matt is traveling, so unfortunately, a lot of the visual stuff that he would help me with, he's not available today, okay? But at the same time, it goes back to the conversation in the offseason, because the conversation in the offseason was pretty straightforward. It was like, what are realistic expectations for Arkansas football? Okay, and 2 things. One, you had some people in the local media basically saying, take 6-6. If you want anything more, you're being ungrateful, and that's not realistic. Now, I don't think that's really the thing that the local media should be saying, but I get, I'm just going to say it. It's no skin off my back. It was a radio show hosted by the voice of the Razorbacks. I'm sure he's very plugged into the community, very plugged into the athletic department. He probably can't go on his radio show and crush the AD. But at the same time, like, why is the local media telling the fans to accept mediocrity? Okay. But here's the other thing. It became a national talking point over the summer as well. And it was during all the hot seat stuff. I seem to remember Andy Staples having this conversation with his co-host, Ari Wasserman. And to be clear, I think they do a really good job, so it's not a criticism. But, they basically had the same thing. They basically had the same conversation, but on the national scale, which is like, what are even realistic expectations for Arkansas, right? And the conversation kind of became, okay, well, Napier's on the hot seat. Venables is on the hot seat. What does it all mean? And then, oh, by the way, Pittman's on the hot seat, but they just made a bowl game. And it's like, if you make a bowl game in Arkansas, just be happy being 6-6, because the counter to that is, look, there are only so many teams in the SEC, and there are only so many games to win, and not everybody can win 10 or 11 games. And so the argument was basically, look, Bama's going to get theirs, Georgia's going to get theirs, whatever, And there's just not many wins to be had for Arkansas. Now, I don't buy that for three reasons, really. One, I don't want to speak for Arkansas fans. I don't think any Arkansas fan is demanding 10 wins a season. I don't think any Arkansas fan is sitting there saying we should be what Alabama was under Nick Saban. The counterpoint, which I do think is fair, can we not be an embarrassment? I saw my buddy John Neighbors post this, and John, I love you, buddy. I'm sorry I'm bringing this up. John Neighbors said, can you give me hope till October? Like, I'm not asking for, 11 and 0 going into the Missouri game to go to Atlanta. He's like, can you give me hope to October? I don't think that's too much to ask. I think that's what all Arkansas fans want, is a reason to hope midway through the season. Beyond that, here's the other thing. For everybody saying that it's impossible for Arkansas, if you watch this game, you know that it's not. Again, I'm not saying every year, but what I am saying is this: watch this game. Taylon Green is as gifted as anybody in college football. I'm just telling you. I'm not saying he's better than John Mateer. I'm not saying he's better than Carson Beck, whoever you think is the best quarterback in the sport. Does he have more natural gifts? Does he have more upside? If you were doing an upside draft of quarterbacks, you'd probably take him number one overall. And he has the best play caller in college football, or one of the best play callers anyway. And so why I say that is the argument that like Arkansas fans should be happy with 6-6. They have a 10-2 offense right now. Watch that offense. They're going to move the ball against anybody. They moved the ball against Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. They have 1,000 yards combined offense the last 2 weeks, and they're 0-2. And so don't tell me that this team should be happy with 6-6, because they should be 4-0 right now. And I'm not saying you beat everybody on the schedule. It's going to be tough. At Texas, at LSU, at Tennessee, Texas A&M at home. But can you not be an embarrassment? And again, you have a 10-2 offense. All you need is a pseudo-competent head coach and a pseudo-competent defense, and you got neither one of them. And so to me, I understand why Arkansas fans are frustrated. And I'm not trying to pick up brownie points, nothing. But it's like you have your AD basically saying that, like, be happy. You have some of the local media saying be happy. You have some of the national media saying be happy. And it's like, we would be happy if we could just get that 10-win season every once in a while. As I almost just spilled coffee everywhere. I'm that fired up. Probably time for me to get out of here as well. But I just bring it up because it's like the pieces are there right now. You just need to be okay on defense and know how to tackle and not be an embarrassment, and you'll be okay. Unfortunately, you can't be. Unfortunately, you're not. And unfortunately, it's a disaster. All I'll say really quick, I think the other big picture with Arkansas, Yurichek's got to go. I have no skin in the game. I don't know him. I don't root for people to lose their jobs. But when you say what you say, you kind of got to go. If I kind of just sat there and said, oh, I'm okay with what I can't even make an analogy. I'm okay with having the 7,000th best. No, I want the best podcast. I might not ever get there. Doesn't mean I can't try. And I think before we even start talking about who should be the next head coach, I think they need a new AD. I think that, frankly, could be coming. Torres on the Hogs for all your late-breaking Arkansas information. Whew, what a loaded show. We are going to go ahead and get out of here. Really quickly, Todd says, who should be Arkansas's next head coach? Well, listen. If I was the AD, cover your ears, fans, if you have kids in the car, okay? If I was the AD, I'd go get John Gruden. If I was the AD, the second that I saw that video of John Gruden saying, I would die to coach in the SEC, I would get on my little private John Tyson plane. By the way, shout out Chicken Man, because I know John Tyson cares about the state of this program. I know John Tyson cares. I know the fans care. I would call John Tyson, can I borrow your jet? I'm going to meet with John Gruden. And all I would say is I would have started those conversations months ago. Excuse me. I would have. And I'm sorry. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's the truth. By the way, what I was going to say was, I won't say what I was going to say. I know I said cover your ears. I'm not going to do it. I would have been on the phone with John Gruden the day after that video. I would have been meeting with him in person in Tampa Bay saying, if this goes sideways, let's work it out. The one thing I will say, and I know it's tough because, you're talking about maybe Rhett Lashley, you're talking about a bunch of other people as I drop my phone here. The one thing that I will say really quick, I don't know who the head coach is going to be. And I know sometimes you can't make this happen. I would keep Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator, though. I think Bobby Petrino is as good at his job as anybody in college football. And I'm not a scheme expert. I don't know how he's doing it, but I don't think he wants to be a head coach anymore. I just think he wants to draw up plays and have fun. And he is doing that, and he deserves better, and his offense deserves better. And transparently, I mean, maybe Gruden wouldn't work with Bobby Petrino. I don't know. Gruden's an offensive guy. He's an offensive guy. Maybe you can't have it. I'd go get John Gruden. It would instantly bring juice to the program, excitement to the program, and I think he's available. I mentioned Dabo earlier in the show, and I think there's something to I think he needs a fresh start. I made the analogy earlier in the show. Dabo feels like John Calipari at the end with Kentucky. He's not done. He wants to keep coaching, but it feels like it's kind of run its course at Clemson. I would call Dabo's agent. Just say, hey, dude, is there any way? And by the way, I haven't looked into his buyout. A lot of these really good coaches have a $0 buyout. Like that was Jimbo Fisher, right? He wasn't a good coach, but you get the point. Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, their buyout $0. Now, for them to leave on their own at $0, to fire them, you have to pay them whatever. Dabo might have a $0 buyout where he can leave for $0 and 0 cents. I would look into it. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. By the way, Arkansas fans, basketball season's coming, so guess what? SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off if you want some basketball tickets. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Before we do, make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. Another great crowd here on a Sunday morning. We really do appreciate everybody's support as we get set to get out of here. We have surpassed 60,000 subscribers. I think we get to 61,000 by the end of the week. So if you have any friends, family that you think would like this show, a lot of college sports, make sure to get them involved. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're also available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And oh, by the way, on top of that, I pinned it at the top of the chat. Our Fox Sports Radio podcast. I host the national Fox Sports Radio show every single Saturday night. And yeah, do me a quick favor. Just download that podcast. Maybe you save it for later. Even if you don't, just download it. Looks good to the bosses at Fox Sports Radio. All right, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody's support. What a show. We're closing in on an hour 20. No producer, Matt. Torres is solo. I'm doing graphics. I'm doing video. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm going to get going. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We are going to rock. We're going to roll. We're going to get out of here. Shout out to Torrin Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You F-head. Unblock me, bro. I'll be back.